must be Santa, Santa Claus. Could be. Must be Luca, must be Luca, must be Luca, Luca, Luca. I don't know. Luca Claus. Chapter 2. I came out from under the shade of the tree, and my creepy feeling was back in full force. In the 5 years since Dad died, since Mom went back to work and I'd been a latchkey kid, I'd always been able to reach in under that tree and find my key exactly where I left it. What could have happened to it? Had someone taken it? Had someone been watching me this morning? My eyes jumped all around to the thick shrubbery on the right and to the oleander hedge on the left. I backed up against the house, turned to face the warm sun wall, and pressed myself small against it. Was someone inside? Sweat trickled down my chest and back. There had to be a simple explanation. Mom was home, that was it. I slid along the wall to the back door and tried the handle. Locked. So, she would lock it from the inside. She always locks the house. Mom? I called, but not very loudly, just in case she wasn't the one. A UPS package sat on the mat. The guy always leaves packages back here so no one can see them from the front. My Aunt Charlie's writing was on the label, and normally I would have shaken the parcel and tried to guess what she'd sent for Christmas, but this wasn't normally. I leaned against the wall. About 1 million ants climbed in a black line 2 inches from my shoulder. I didn't move. After a minute, I snaked out my hand and rang the doorbell. Over the pounding of my heart, I heard it ding dong inside the house. Now Mom would come, and she'd say, "Oh, Marky, you know what? I couldn't left my key." But wouldn't Mom have taken in the package? I slid further from the door, wishing now I hadn't rung the bell. Nobody came. Maybe there was a burglar in there ripping us off. Everybody knows Christmas is a favorite time for burglars. He'd seen me hide the key and... Okay now, Marcus, don't panic. Maybe Mom gave the key to Nick. Maybe he needed to get in the house for some reason. She said, "Here, but be sure to put it back for Marcus. He'll need it after school." Yeah, that's what it was. And Nick had forgotten. I could kill that guy, Nick. I tiptoed around the house and raced up the stairs to his apartment, looking over my shoulder all the time at our silent house below. Nobody came when I knocked. Nick had hung a plastic Christmas wreath on the door with red plastic apples and berries sticking on it. I hate plastic wreaths, but I guess they're like plastic Christmas trees, very practical. Come on, I whispered, "this time be here." After a minute, I tried the knob and the door opened. Dumb. That's dumb, Nick. Don't you know there are thieves around this time of year? He'd fixed the place up nice, all right. There was a big picture of some kind of flying bird on the wall, but all I cared about was that the place was empty. Nick wasn't here. Well, sure. If I'd been thinking right, I'd remember that his car wasn't parked below. But then I wasn't thinking right. Nick was back at school then with my key in his pocket. Maybe. I was just about to back out when I saw the photograph lying on the wicker table by the door. It was black and white, about the size of a page from my school notebook. Even though I was seeing it upside down, I knew who it was. I stood looking down at it without touching it. Mom. Mom sitting in the kitchen. Her elbows were on the table and she had her special mug cupped in her hands. Her eyes were sad as if she were remembering something far, far away. Her shoulders drooped, her hair half hid her face. I knew it was a wonderful picture. It captured a longing in her that she kept hidden, one that made my throat close up with my own sadness. She hadn't known it was being taken, but whoever took it loved her. I closed Nick's door and ran back down the steps. Ran where? Not back to the house. I crouched behind Nick's wooden stairs for a minute, trying to think, trying to leave the sad image of Mom and get myself back together. After a couple of minutes, I squeezed through the oleander hedge and into the Clark's yard. Across the street, Patchen had come slowly into his front yard and stood stiff-legged, pretending to watch me. Patchen is so old I doubt he can actually see across the street. Last week, Mrs. Della Rosa had opened his mouth to show me he has no teeth anymore. Some guard dog. Miss Coriander came to the back door before I could knock. I like her better than Miss Sarah. She has gray hair pulled back and the whitest white skin without a single wrinkle. She's stooped about double, and she peers up at you when she talks. I think that's one reason why she and Miss Sarah don't miss anything. Miss Coriander sees all that goes on at her level, and Miss Sarah is tall and keeps watch up above. Miss Coriander's eyes are blue, but Miss Sarah has one blue and one brown, both sharp. If there had been anything or anybody to see around our house, Miss Coriander and Miss Sarah Clark would have seen it, or him. "Good afternoon, Marcus," Miss Coriander said. "Hi, did you happen to see someone at our back door today?" I asked. "No, why?" Matching eyes can be sharp too. Speak up, Marcus. Is something wrong? I'd have to be careful here. Miss Sarah and Miss Coriander are pretty disapproving of Mom leaving me alone. Here's what Mom had said. "What do you expect me to do?" Mom had asked him. "I have to work." "He could stay with us, Caroline." Oh, wow. Mom and I had had a meaningful discussion, but if Mom knew about this, I'd be back to square one. "I just wondered," I said vaguely. "Sarah?" When Miss Coriander raised her voice, she really raises it. Miss Sarah came in a flash. "Did you see anybody at the Mullins house today, Sarah?" Miss Sarah pulled off her gardening gloves. "I saw that young man, Nick," she said. "He came down the steps and got in his car. He was wearing those short khaki shorts and that tight white T-shirt." "That's what he wears to his job," I said, wondering why I was bothering to defend Nick, especially now that I knew about the photograph. "Didn't that dog of the Della Rosas bark some today?" Miss Coriander asked. "Oh, him," Miss Sarah dismissed Patchen with a wave of her hand. "And why are you asking about someone at the house, Marcus?" So they hadn't seen anything. I had to think fast or they'd worm the whole story out of me and call Mom right in the middle of her Christmas rush, and she'd have to come home, and I'd have to tell Mom myself anyway. A missing key is dangerous stuff. But I'd tell her, not them. It would be the same thing if I asked to borrow their emergency key. There'd be questions and a lecture about responsibility and more suggestions to Mom. "Someone left a gift by the door," I said. "That's all. I thought you might have seen who it was." "Someone left a gift?" Miss Coriander cast an accusing glance at Miss Sarah. "How did you miss that, Sarah?" "It must have been while I was at the market. You weren't keeping an eye out, Coriander." I began edging away. "I guess I'll find out at Christmas," I said. "No sweat, just checking." Now I couldn't wait to go back and look some more for the keys because I just thought of something. What a relief. The key could have fallen off the nub. Of course that was what happened. I had told myself not to panic, but I hadn't listened. Easy now to imagine myself hanging it up this morning on its loop of worn tape, to imagine it swinging gently, dropping, or maybe... "Was there a big wind today?" I asked Miss Sarah. She gave me one of her sharp, double-barreled blue-brown stares. "Wind? What is this all about? What are you up to, Marcus?" "Nothing, honest, Miss Sarah." I backed myself partway through the oleander hedge. "Well, see you." I was in our yard now, running in my new zigzag crouch position across the front yard toward the live oak tree. Miss Sarah and Miss Coriander wouldn't miss this strange maneuver. "What's he up to now?" Miss Sarah would ask. "Isn't Marcus too old to still be playing army?" I stood in the shade of the tree, panting a bit before I got on my hands and knees. It was gloom and doom down there, all right. I wish I had our big flashlight, but the flashlight was in the house, and the house was locked, and I didn't have the key. Catch-22, as Mom always says. My hands kept finding things among the dead leaves I didn't want to think about. I was sure by its shape that this one was either a very small pine cone or a piece of dried up dog poop. Probably poop. Probably Patchins. Well, better Patchins than estranged dogs. Lots of gross feelings down there, but no key. I stood up, bumping my head, and then I saw the small shine of metal as a ray of sun slanted in. I peered closer. There was the key. I stared at it for the longest time. It was hanging from a sticking-out nub, all right, but this was the wrong nub. End of chapter 2. Luca.
Maybe the person took the key to get into the house, and they might have tried to put it back so it looked like they didn't go inside, but they put it on the wrong one.
Maybe. Reasonable. Yes.
Cliffhanger.
Yes, and that's why he's called Cliffhanger. Shelby.
I think he might have just accidentally put it on the wrong note.
He might have just made a mistake. Yep. Reasonable as well.
That still doesn't account for the watching feeling.
Doesn't account for the watching feeling. You're right.
Maybe, like, somebody was there and they picked up the key and they started to walk over towards the house, but then he ran back. Like, they heard him coming, like, saying, do you want to come in? And then they put the key back down and ran, but they put it on the wrong thing.
Could have been in a hurry. Catherine, you had something or no?
Maybe he still put on the wrong nub, but someone still came, and they thought that that's where he put it, because he might have put it there, so they might have put it there.
Isaac.
I have two answers. One for the one about the mystery of the picture of his mom, and two about it being on the wrong note.
Mm-hmm.
Nick came, got the key, unlocked the door, went in, got the picture. When he was coming out, Patchins started barking. Afraid that he was going to be found out in robbery, he quickly locked the door, put it on a nub that he assumed was correct, then brought the picture back up to his apartment. Simple as that.
Simple as that.
And what Sarah was seeing, who was it again? I'll just say it was Sarah. Saw him entering his green car and leave it. She did not see him going up to his apartment.
What was it that his mom called when he had reasons why he wanted the flashlight, but it was in the house and the house was locked?
Catch-22. I think that comes from a book by that name.